everyone, I'm Rebecca and I'm here with my fellow hosts of the podcast,
Emma
and
Cayley.
And we are gonna take a trip down memory lane to back when we were younger. Or at least I am. When I was younger.
We're the same age.
Yeah. No, but I don't know if you read the book when you were younger.
Oh, okay.
Did
I
you?
grew up in
I
a
did,
Christian
yeah.
household.
Yeah.
You think I didn't read this book?
Okay, fine. So we're gonna do a deep dive, or as deep as we want to, or as shallow as we want to, into the short children's story, The Giving Tree by Shel Silverstein. So I've read it. You've read it?
Yeah.
I also read it when I was a child because I grew up in a Christian household.
And if you don't know the story, I'm gonna read it for you now.
Would you like me to narrate it?
Emma will read it!
I'll read it. Once there was a tree and she loved a little boy. And every day the boy would come and he would gather her leaves and make them into crowns and play king of the forest. He would climb up her trunk and swing from her branches and eat apples. And they would play hide and go seek, and when he was tired he would sleep in her shade. And the boy loved the tree very much. And the tree was happy, but time went by and the boy grew older, and the tree was often alone. Then one day the boy came to the tree and the tree said, "Oops, come boy, climb up my trunk and swing from my branches and eat apples and play in my shade and be happy." "I am too big to climb and play," said the boy. "I want to buy things and have fun. I want some money." "I'm sorry," said the tree, "but I have no money. I only have leaves and apples. Take my apples, boy, and sell them in the city. Then you will have money and you will be happy." And so the boy climbed up the tree and gathered her apples and carried them away. And the tree was happy, but the boy stayed away for a long time, and the tree was sad. And then one day the boy came back and the tree shook with joy, and she said, "Boy, come, climb up my trunk and swing from my branches and be happy." "I am too busy to climb trees," said the boy. "I want a house to keep me warm," he said. "I want a wife and I want children, and so I need a house. Can you give me a house?" "I have no house," said the tree. "The forest is my house, but you may cut off my branches and build a house. Then you will be happy." And so the boy cut off her branches and carried them away to build his house. And the tree was happy. But the boy stayed away for a long time, and when he came back, the tree was so happy she could barely speak. "Come, boy," she whispered, "come and play." "I am too old and too sad to play," said the boy. "I want a boat that will take me far away from here. Can you give me a boat?" "Cut down my trunk and make a boat," said the tree. "Then you can sail away and be happy." And so the boy cut down her trunk and made a boat and sailed away, and the tree was happy, but not really. And after a long time the boy came back again. "I am sorry, boy," said the tree, "but I have nothing left to give you. My apples are gone." "My teeth are too weak for apples," said the boy. "My branches are gone," said the tree. "You cannot swing on them." "I am too old to swing on branches," said the boy. "My trunk is gone," said the tree. "You cannot climb." "I'm too tired to climb," said the boy. "I'm sorry," sighed the tree. "I wish I could give you something, but I have nothing left. I'm just an old stump. I'm very sorry." "I don't need much now," said the boy. "Just a quiet place to sit and rest." "I am very tired." "Well," said the tree, straightening herself up as much as she could. "Well, an old stump is good for sitting and resting. Come, boy, sit down and rest." And the boy did, and the tree was happy. The end.
Thank you for your narration of the story. My voice just gave up.
Yeah.
Okay, so as you've heard from the story, it's quite simple, right? It's about a relationship between a tree and a boy. But there has been a lot of different ways that the story has been interpreted, and it's also been described as one of the most divisive books in children's literature. And it's kind of funny because it's a children's book, right? It's supposed to be simple, but no, it's not. And many people are talking about the relationship between the main characters, the tree and the boy, and whether it's healthy or not, and whether it's what it's actually supposed to symbolize. So yeah, what are your thoughts on the story?
I think I would have never expected it to be controversial. Just because I always kind of accepted it for what it is, and I didn't really think too hard about it.
Mm.
But I mean, like, now that you mention it, yeah, it does make sense that it's not exactly a healthy relationship. But I think, as with all children's stories, you kind of have to contextualize, and because it's a children's story, you're using it not just to entertain, but as a teaching tool. So you have to draw examples and say, this is what is good, this is what is bad. And just because a book has both elements doesn't mean that you should be everything that the book is.
Right.
Because, like, there's a spectrum of things that you should and shouldn't do.
And it's fiction.
And it's fiction. But I like that it's written in prose. I think that was very interesting. It's very poetic.
I think for me, because, like, I kind of grew up with, like, the story. Like, the first time I think I read it was, like, in public speaking group. And it was, like, a Christian public speaking group. And then, like, once in a while we'll, like, present this story as, like, a group thing. Because, like, I don't know, some people can be the tree, some people can be, like, the narrators, and there'll always be a boy. And I think, like, most of the time it was just interpreted as, like, a kind of, like, unconditional love from the tree. But at least, like, I know, and, like, some of, like, my other friends were like, that's kind of weird, though. Like, the boy seems kind of selfish for just, like, taking everything. And then, like, the tree has nothing left. And, like, the tree is sad and everything, right? And I feel like the story kind of... Like, the moral was never really, like, unpacked for us. We just, like, read it as it is. And no one really said, like, oh, maybe, like, this is what we can learn from the tree. And this is what we can learn from the boy. And this is what we should and should not do. But it was always just like, it's just like a very sweet form of like, just like,
it's just a story. You didn't think too
and just like a
about it.
story, right? So I felt that in that sense it was like lacking, and so it was like up to like my own interpretation. And as I grew up, like learning a little bit more about like interpersonal relationships and how, in a sense, this wasn't the best relationship because the tree kept giving, but the boy. Okay, not that it was like the boy's fault, but like he kept taking, and the tree got like the most joy from like the boy's company, but I guess in the story you can't really see like where the boy's joy is coming from, and obviously like the tree cared more for the boy than the boy cared for the tree.
Yeah,
and that's very visible.
I think kind of parallels to how humans treat nature and how we're always taking from it. Like, we just cut down trees to make your house in Minecraft or kill all the cows, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, like, I was actually going to raise the point that Cayley did. Like, there's a couple of different ways to interpret it. So, like, there's the unconditional love aspect, and then there's, like, the woohoo, hippie, like, we have impact on nature perspective.
Yeah.
And then there's the, hang on, maybe this love is actually not healthy and it's kind of toxic. Yeah.
And also, like, another view is, like, a parent and a child's relationship, which is a little bit harder to define. And in a sense, like, say if these two people were, like, equals. Okay, not equals, but, like, if like, the tree was, like, you and the boy was me, that's not very, healthy. Because, or in, like, a romantic relationship, right? It's not healthy at all. But in a parent-child relationship, it's a little bit different because the parent's role is there to provide for the child. And when the child is young, right, like, say, like, you're minor and under, you're also there to, like, receive. And then it slightly changes as, like, you grow older and, like, you enter, like, 18, 19, and after that you become like financially independent and like you are not dependent on your parents anymore. So in a sense, like that line or like what is healthy and what's not, and like in terms of like in the story context, right, like whether this was healthy or not is a bit blurred. So how do you view it? Like if we were to interpret this in like a parent-child context, what are your thoughts?
I think it does work as a part of it works as a parent-child context, as a parent-child relationship, because when you have kids, the kid doesn't do anything for you. They're not gonna give you back. They're not gonna give back what they've taken. Like even when you give birth and like have the kid, it's like sucking all your nutrients out of you. And even once they grow up, you could have a child that ranges from a child that really takes care of his parents because they're older, who like gives them monthly allowance or whatever, who is very 孝顺 the kid.
What
But
does that mean?
filial, like extremely like
okay.
I respect you, I love you, I will take care of you.
Fake Chinese.
Or you could have a kid like the boy who doesn't take care of or give back to the tree at all. So it's kind of, I guess it's kind of a gamble. I guess that's how you raise your kid, but yeah.
Well, then one might argue, right, that the boy gave the tree joy, right?
But not all the time.
But not all the time. But the tree eventually realized that she was not satisfied.
Because there was parts where the tree was like,
I am happy.
Or am I?
Yeah.
because it thought it was, but no.
So, like, I think that is akin to a lot of parenting, too, because it's like, at least, like, for mothers, they go through that postnatal kind of depression phase, and it can be really lonely from what I've heard from friends and, like, relatives. And a lot of the return they feel as a parent is, like, watching a kid grow up. Like, that's where they get the joy.
Yeah.
But I think that's also, like, the nature of the relationship. To a certain extent, if you have accepted the responsibilities of being a parent, I'm just making really general blanket statements here. So, but to an extent, if you have accepted the responsibilities of being a parent, loving and caring for your kids becomes your top priority. And, like, I think the sacrifice that the tree displays is not uncommon within that context. And I don't think you would say that the tree was wrong for that. Was the boy a little bit spoiled and entitled? Yeah. But also, do you know kids who aren't kind of spoiled and entitled to a certain extent? Like, it's hard to find somebody who isn't, to an extent, a little bit spoiled or a little bit entitled. Because I think we're all not perfect in our own ways. Like, I know I can be a brat sometimes. And, like, it really just does matter, I feel, that as you grow older, you become more aware of your actions and how they impact the world around you. I feel like that's what the boy didn't really learn. He didn't learn how his actions impacted the tree. Because, like, what you said with the kid and parent sort of parallel, as a child grows, they hopefully come to understand the sacrifices that their parents make for them. And maybe it's not really a sacrifice that they understand or not a sacrifice that they want, but it's still done from a place of love, ultimately.
And, okay, I totally relate with, like, the seeing children grow up and getting joy from that. Like, as, like, a babysitter, like, I've babysat these, like, 2 kids for, like, almost 2 years. Just, like, consistently.
Oh, wow.
And they were the only kids that I babysat for those 2 years. And I'm still babysitting for them. And, like, seeing how he went from, like, a babbling baby to, like, a little kid that's just, like, going around doing everything. And, like, he knows how to make a maze. Like, a maze on paper. And I'm like, bro, I don't know how to do that.
Pattern
how are you
recognition?
doing this? Like, it took me 10 minutes to make a maze and you made this in 5 minutes? What? Like, you're 4 years old, okay? Stop growing up so fast. And I really got the joy from that. Like, just seeing the milestones and then seeing how he's becoming, like, just like an individual person, right? And that's just so beautiful to see. And I feel like in the story, like, one thing that's really lacking is, like, that growth, that maturity from the boy, right? Like, you expect him to grow older and, like, become an adult and come back and care for the tree. Like, just, like, I don't know, companionship, or just, like, yeah, sure, I'll settle for, like, an apple or 2. Like, that's
In the
fine.
end, he did.
I mean, he came back to,
But-
like, sit.
That was merely
Yeah, no,
because
but
he had nothing else to
It
do.
was because he had nothing else to do. It was
It
his
was-
final
yeah.
option.
I guess, like, in this stage of, like, our lives where, like, we're kind of growing up and we're thinking about, like, how to become independent people from our families, right? And, like, in the story, the boy was like,
I want a wife, I want a house, and I want children.
and, like, that's his own personal, like, goals, right? And yeah, I guess if you view it in, like, a parent context, like, that's kind of, like, that's most that's what most people do when they grow up, right?
Yeah.
They have their own families, they live in their own space, and in a sense, like, they kind of just, like, are apart from, like, their family, their parents for a while. And I guess, like, many parents do feel like that empty nest. Like I have spent, like, my a good, like, 18 years investing into your life, and then, like, suddenly you're gone, and, like, what purpose do I have anymore? And then in the end, like, the boy came back because, like, he was old, he had nothing left to, like, chase anymore, and he kind of came back to his parents. And I feel like that's also a very natural progression that people do, like, not so old to the point where, like, you're, like, 60 and your parents, like, are, like, 90. Like, I guess I guess that could happen, but I feel like it kind of comes around, and then, like, the appropriate thing would be to, like, take care of your parents and, like, you know, make sure that they're okay, or just, like, be with them. So in a sense, I feel like it's very realistic, because it may not necessarily be, like, immaturity that, like, the boy didn't take care of, like, the tree, or, like, give something to the tree, but he was just very intent on, like, developing his own life, that he kind of just, like, not, he was just, like, not with the tree anymore.
He kind of brushed the tree to the side.
Yeah.
Sorry, Cayley, you were saying about the filial piety.
Piety?
Yeah. Before I
what
interrupted you.
No, I finished.
Oops. My bad.
Well,
My bad.
Yeah, but I think filial piety is an interesting thing to, like, think about.
of course, sometimes it's not good because you're kind of forced to do those things, not out of love or anything, but yeah.
It's, like, I think in general, like, respecting your parents and, like, wanting to take care of them is great, but that also, like, I feel like you need to have, like, a good relationship with your parents as well. Like, love shouldn't be, like, forced. Like, I force you to love me, but you love me because of who I am, and not because of what I can do for you, or, like, all the things. But just, like, loving me, and then that filial piety is just that natural response.
Yeah,
Not
I feel
natural, but just out of, like, love and, like, sincerity.
But then it kind of begs of a deeper question, like, what is love? Is love responsibility? Please don't spit that.
That's not water.
That's not water. Don't spit that. I made Cayley spit water a bunch during the last
I
episode.
tried to spit it back into the bottle, but expectedly
This
I missed.
hole is a lot smaller.
Yeah.
Is this a running trend?
I
I better not.
used to go for flute class, and I just laugh every class, and then
Is it?
it's really hard to play the flute when you're laughing, and it just makes it funnier.
It's like a random spike.
Yeah, and the teacher's like, "What the heck?" No, and your mouth moves when you laugh, right? And because you need a proper like
Mouth shape.
mouth shape, the sound just goes on.
Yeah, no, so, like, the question is then, like, what is love? And can love be all of those things at once? And can it be more of one thing in a certain season?
Wait, what do you mean by all of those things? Like, what are those
Like,
things that you're
the
referring to?
responsibility, the filial piety, the to a certain level, the obligation. Like, I agree that love shouldn't just be a result of emotional obligation.
Yeah, of course.
But when the going gets tough, to a certain extent, it is obligation, I feel.
Yeah.
I mean,
Sometimes.
do you want to expand on sometimes? Because
Uh,
my answer is also sometimes.
Oh. I was thinking like
Oh, oops, I touched the light. Okay.
The crinkle.
The crinkle.
I forgot.
I think it depends, like, because, like, we're speaking in very general terms, right?
Yeah.
Like, if the going gets tough, or, like, what actually love is. And, like, well, I think it's something that can come naturally to people in certain settings, especially when you feel comfortable and you feel, like, and things are going well. Sometimes it's also a very deliberate choice on days where when we're not, like, feeling it. And I'm not saying, like, in, like, the toxic sense, like, oh, like, you're in, like, a really bad relationship, and, like,
Yeah.
the relationship...
If you're being
person is
abused,
toxic.
like, please leave.
Yeah.
Like, please don't stay in the relationship.
Some days I just, like, wake up and I'm really cranky, and, like, I feel like screaming at everyone, okay?
Yeah.
And, like, I mean, that's That's
Like,
natural.
people get bad days.
There are bad days. Like, sometimes I just wake up really cross. And it takes, like, a deliberate, what's it called? Decision to be like, hey, thanks for making the meal.
Yeah.
And, like, if that is the way that, like, my mom feels love, like, thanking her for the meal, then, like, yeah, that's something that I want to do, right? Even though I may not
Then
feel
that's
like
you,
it.
like, taking responsibility.
Right. But, like, I feel like blindly, I guess the very, like, forced down your throat filial piety in, like, a very societal context can be quite damaging, especially for people with, strained relationship with, like, their family. Because you don't become a bad person just because, like, you don't have a good relationship with your parents, or you don't, like, send your parents, like, an allowance every month. Because not everyone can afford that, right? And at the same time, also, like, just thinking about, like, the way that we view, like, parenting and everything. Because I feel like some, well, at least, like, in some, I don't want to generalize, but at the same time, I have to generalize. Because, like,
You kind of go into
sometimes it's
specifics for
true.
everything.
yeah, but, like, I feel like sometimes, some people may view, like, having kids as, like, like, I'm having kids, so, like, when I'm old, like, someone can take care of me. But at the same time, like, kids shouldn't be, like, your
Yeah, that shouldn't
investment
be
plan.
your... Yeah,
Because then you grow up,
it's my shoulder.
you raise these kids to become people that you want them to be. And while it's good to have, like, some sort of directed, like, parenting, I feel like just, like, grappling with the fact that these people are going to become individuals, and being okay with that is something that some people are not okay with. And that's where, like, the toxic filial piety, like, comes in. And these people are like, you have to, like, send me money.
I raised you and I fed you
yeah.
every single day. I put a roof over your head and this is how you treat me.
And then the kid's like, but I didn't ask to be born.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
and the thing is, like, when you get a situation like that, where the parent has that sort of cultural expectation, and the reality is, like, the child will never fully be what you want them to be.
Yeah.
I was like, it to be? But, like, the child will never really fully be what you want them to be.
Yeah.
So, it's hard because you have that expectation
And
for
sometimes
your
the
child.
expectations, like, from a good place. Like, you want them to become a good person.
Yeah, you want them to be a good person. You want them to, like, have financial security, whatever. Okay, fine. But living up to the expectation that the parents set versus, like, what the child wants. Because, like, at the end of the day, it's also about really letting go of control, right?
Right.
This is an individual who's gonna have their own personality. Like, I keep fish. My fish have personalities. Can you imagine how awful it would be if I had a kid? Like...
What? Oh.
What?
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 No, like-
doesn't mean, like,
No, like, okay, wait. I don't know what that jump was.
what was the jump? Like,
If
Wait,
what's
fish-
happening
so-
to your fish that
No, okay, so...
would be bad if you had a
fish,
kid?
If a fish can have a personality, and, like, it's such a small animal, right?
Yeah.
How much more of a personality could a child have
That you can negatively affect.
that you
by.
could, like, negatively affect?
Oh, are you negatively affecting a fish?
I hope not.
That's great. That's great. Keep that energy.
Like, like, as much as I can, it's like, it's so scary because it's like I'm playing God, but
it's like its life is in your hands.
its life is in my
It's
hands.
depending on you.
Fully dependent on me because I take
it
care
can't,
of
like,
the
source
water.
for its food.
It's stuck there. If I stop feeding it,
It'll die.
that's it. Game over.
Same thing with children.
No, same thing with kids, but kids can escape. It's a fish in a tank. It can't escape.
Yeah.
If it jumps out of the tank, it's like a goner.
Mm-hmm. That's how, like, my dad's fish died. Like, the last one that he had, I think. Is it? Or maybe, like, one of the fish. Like, the arowana, like, jumped out of the tank and died. Okay, yeah, let's get back to the topic. So, you're talking about, like, taking care of your fish. Oh, yeah, just, like, the whole responsibility of, like,
Yeah, no,
having
so
life
it's
in your
like-
hands.
Yeah, and like
Scary.
technically, maybe I am the giving tree, but like, my fish don't demand anything of me.
fish give you?
They give me joy, but
Happiness.
they also don't complain about anything.
Do they steal your
They
allowance?
can't complain, because you
can't
can't understand their
Maybe they've been complaining the whole time.
They're just, like, saying... What is this? Change the view, Emma. I hate the surroundings.
No, but like
been
I
looking
realized
at
like
this
they
for
got
2 hours.
traumatized over Chinese New Year.
Why?
Because my little cousins came over
Oh.
and they would like come and like disturb my fish.
Oh.
And the furniture was being moved around and my fish didn't like that.
Mm.
So the ones in my big tank have been hiding a lot more since Chinese New Year.
They're-
Because
they're-
initially they would like swim out in the open a lot more. But
Mm.
now they're more concentrated towards the plants or towards the surface where there's more cover.
Right.
they're gossiping about you.
No, I think it's trauma.
Yeah, so they're going to
Time for fish
fishy
therapy.
counseling.
Fish therapy.
They're doing group therapy.
Yeah, and like one of them, like, okay, well, actually, there's a couple of factors because over Chinese New Year, one of my fish also died.
Oh,
But it was because
She
it had like
killed our friend.
environment and death trauma. Not good. Not a good
file
combination.
a complaint.
no, but in my defense, it was like a parasitical disease that I really couldn't have stopped.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like skinny fish disease. Apparently, it's a thing.
That's
But, like,
even
the
worse. Like
parasite-
Funny
imagine
name.
it's like die. Like imagine your family member dying from like a
No, and it was just dying
incurable
slowly.
disease.
Skinny human disease.
That's like so traumatic.
Yeah.
I really feel for your face.
The healthcare should be better here, but she doesn't provide healthcare, does she? I'm sorry, I'm just kidding.
Well, at least it's free.
It's free healthcare!
It's not free for me.
Yeah, exactly. Like my birds, they take up a lot of my allowance. I'm just like,
It's like, no, so like that's the thing. If you have a pet, it's responsibility that you take on, but in return, you get that joy. But the boy is not a pet.
Yeah.
yeah, and actually, isn't even the tree's responsibility to be giving him anything?
Yeah, and it's not even the tree's responsibility. She chooses to do it because she loves him.
Yeah. But I mean, like, isn't that like a parent as well? Like, you choose that responsibility. You choose it when you have a kid,
Mhm.
and you do it because most of the time, I hope they do it because they love the kid,
Mhm.
right?
But I mean, in like all good situations, yeah, that's what it is. Okay.
From the boy's perspective, he doesn't. Does he know the tree loves him, or does he just go to the tree?
I feel like he takes it for granted.
But that's also because the
But, like-
author didn't like write much
But-
about the boy's emotions.
To him, is the tree just a tree, or is it like a tree with feelings? Like,
I feel like, well, like the way the
how
book
does
is
he
written
perceive
also.
the tree?
That's a good question.
That's something that we can unpack right now.
Let's go.
Jinx. I feel like the way like the boy is written, it leaves a lot to like interpretation. Because like like the tree was happy, but not really. And then the boy just took stuff. So in a sense, like because we are able to like know the tree's emotions, we're able
Yeah.
to empathize with her. And I mean like I feel like when I was a kid, I was like, oh yeah, the tree's sad, oh the tree's happy, like and then everyone's like the boy bad. But yeah, then again, like how do you think like the boy, like what are the different ways that the boy could have like saw the tree?
He does speak to the tree. Like, he's been talking to an inanimate object, so I guess he knows it's within the story. He does
Okay,
talk
what if
to
the
it.
boy's actually crazy?
And
He's
it's
out
just
of
like
it.
he wrote this book, like that's just
Baby,
what the tree
I'm
says.
Like,
hallucination.
maybe he
Justifying
wrote-
my use of the tree.
Yeah. It's a little too close to home. But I'm about to wax philosophical.
Go.
What if nothing is real? Like, what
It's
if
a
nothing is real?
fictional story.
What? No, I know it's a fictional story, but within their universe, what if none of it was real?
Oh, no.
What if the boy was imagining it the whole time, his relationship with the tree? Because the book is written for us to
It's giving-
sympathize with the tree.
It's giving me like an escape from reality.
Yeah.
No, like when he was young, maybe he didn't have any friends. And then when he grew up, he was
he had
like
to
working
train.
so hard.
Yeah, no,
For all
you
these
look at the
things.
boy, right? He's working to get money. He's working to get a nice house so that he can get a wife, get kids. But where are his wife and kids after?
Yeah.
Like, what if none of it existed and he just keeps on trying to reach the next step in order to feel like he's been accomplished in life, and the tree is like the only place where he can really express this? Like, because actually, like, the more I think about it, the more I feel bad for the boy.
Yeah.
Because he's just chasing all of these, like, worldly standards while neglecting his happiness. He thinks that getting everything that society says is what you want is what's going to make him happy. But maybe it's not. You know, and that's okay.
But at the same time, I feel like, to a certain extent, those things make you happy. Like, yeah, like, money can buy you happiness, but money can buy you, like...
But it's like, I'd rather be poor in a BMW than poor, like, have you not seen that?
Sad. I'd rather be, like, sad in my private jet.
Yeah, it's like, I'd rather be sad in my private jet than, like...
Sad in McDonald's.
Like, sad... Well, you can be both sad in a private jet.
Both are depressing.
No,
Yeah,
but, like, in a sense, like, money can buy you, like, experiences. It can buy you, like, opportunities, which I think most people can find happiness out of. So, like, if, like, the happiness was, like, companionship, then, yeah, like, in a sense...
Yeah.
I mean, it's up to you to determine, like, what you are happy.
Because, like, it feels like at the end, right, the boy realizes that companionship is really what he was searching for the entire time.
Yeah.
But he realized it too
late.
So, yeah.
So
this took a really depressing turn.
He sees the tree as companionship. But
Yeah.
while he didn't know that, he was killing the tree.
Yeah.
Because he took the leaves. I mean, like a tree needs leaves to survive.
He needs his photosynthesis.
But like in winter, they can survive with like not as many leaves, I guess.
I don't
But
know
it's
how
not
it
winter
works.
forever.
It's not winter forever.
Yeah, but he took the tree. He took the leaves as like
and then
probably
he took the
not-
branches.
Yeah, and then he cut the whole tree down. At that point, the tree's just dead.
Yeah.
But somehow the tree can still talk, so...
Yes, I don't think it's really realistic. It's just like the tree is there as a
But
presence.
it's like a fictional story. It's not supposed to be realistic. We're just overanalyzing this.
No, but, like, I think, like, the whole perspective, like, from the boy, like, it's a very... I feel like there's some sort of, like, truth and reality that many of us can, like, relate with, you know, like, chasing, like, what the world tells you is good for you, which there may be truth to a certain extent, because, like, that's what societies built on, okay? But at the same time, also, like, recognizing that at the end of the day, like, relationships and connecting with others is really what, or at least I personally think that that's what really matters, because it's so much more, it's on a whole other level, you know? It's like, that interpersonal, like, connection that you can have with someone is something that money can't buy. It's something that you can't just, like, one day work for. And so, in a sense, like, him realizing that way too late is such a shame. But at the same time, many of us realize it way too late. Because we get so caught up in...
The hustle and bustle.
Yeah. And just trying to, like, live life. And then when we are done chasing whatever... we realize of all the stuff that we've missed out on, and by then it may be too late. It may not! It may not, but it may be too late.
But,
so.
like, the reality is, for a lot of people, it is too late.
Yeah. And, like, circling back to, like, relationships with parents, like, sometimes...
Yeah, why do we only value people when they're old?
Yeah, we do. What?
Like, at least for the communities that I grew up in, people would, because it's like partly expatriate, right? The reason people go back to their home country isn't for anything aside from my parents are getting old.
That's
and
why
I
we
wanna
came
be
back,
there.
actually.
Oh.
Yeah, so it's like...
It's not value, though. It's just like because you're less able to take care of yourself, I want to be there.
Yeah, so it's like, but why were we not doing that? I mean, like, obviously it's the well-being of the people around you has always mattered, but, like, that's why me and my family came back too, like, that was part of the reason, but also it's like, obviously there's gonna be more reasons than just my parents are getting old, but I feel like as grandparents or whoever it is age, you suddenly realize that you're operating on a very tight timeline, and you try to shove all of the lost time into a very short span.
Yeah.
And, like, the point that I'm going with this is that, and I'm bad at it too, I'll be the first person to say, like, I'm a huge hypocrite, when it comes to this, because I'm not great at making time for the people around me. But why is it that we only make intentional efforts to value the people and things around us when we realize that there is an expiration date?
I think just like maybe it's like me and like my personality and like deadlines and like when deadlines come, like suddenly you have to like do a crap ton of stuff. But I think
procrastinating life.
I think just like I just like hyper aware, especially like when they are so like more old, right? It's like just being so aware that I mean, even when you're young, you could go like anytime. I feel like we're becoming more aware of that. But at the same time, it's like when it's just like right at your doorstep, you feel like you have to like just be there.
Yeah, no, but that makes it even worse, because knowing that somebody could go at any time.
Yeah. And not being
and
there.
Not having had that experience that a lot of people, or some people, typically try to shove into like the last 5 to 6 years of a person's life. You can't make up for that lost time in between.
So you're saying like we should have just been there with them the whole time?
It's maybe not been there physically, because I know it's hard to be there physically, but making time to have conversations, phone calls, sending postcards, all of these things like build a relationship in more ways than we can imagine. And often for the people who are left behind, it means a lot to know that you're remembered.
The people who are left behind.
Like the people, both ways, who are left behind and who leave. It means a lot to know that you're remembered. Like, I don't know, your friends in China, do you keep in touch with them?
No. Well, so like when we moved, we had 4 days. So the last 3 days, the last 4 days and the last day we left. But like the last 3 days, we were doing sleepovers and just staying at their house because so my parents could pack while we were like not underfoot. So, and I was just kind of thinking like, why can't we just have sleepovers all the time, like every weekend? That would be a great idea.
Right. Yeah.
But I don't think it would be a great idea because then you just get like too comfortable, and like with your siblings, it's different than with your friends. Because, like, with my brother, we piss each other off really easily. And I think that might happen if I was with some of my friends for so long and so much time. And also all the energy. Like, it takes energy to talk to people and be around people. So, yeah, it's understandable why sometimes you wouldn't want to always be around those you love all the time. But it does make sense to make an effort, not just when you know that they're going to be taken away from you.
Yeah. So that's like, you eloquently expressed what I was trying to get at. So, like...
I think you, like, processed it for me. And I
yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. No, I was gonna say, like, I feel it's a very, like... It's a whole, like, circle, right? It's, like, because you're talking about, like, 3 different... I guess you could assume 3 different generations. And, like, everyone's circle from, like start of life, like end of life is different, right? And people mature at like different times. That's why like it's like your parents take care of their parents, and you in turn take care of your parents and your grandparents as much as possible. But you'll be taking care of your parents more than you would your grandparents, right? And when they circle back, it's like you kind of start out like needing a lot of care, and then there's like a huge chunk in your life where like you'll mainly like be independent. And then when you can't, you're kind of growing old and you become a little bit more dependent on others. And during the time where like you depend a lot more on others, like there are going to be people that they're going to be taking care of you, right? So say like when you're a baby, your parents take care of you, and then they grow old, and then they in turn kind of depend on either you or whoever else, right? And so it's very like intense. Like you've got to be there for them. You've got to like provide for them, and like in terms of like the connection is going to be like so much more. So it kind of makes sense that during that the later years in like their life, and like you being more intentional about taking care of them, like makes sense because they need the care. And you may find yourself getting closer to them during that point of time in your life. And that doesn't mean that the times that you weren't close with them was, like, wasted. And it's great if, like, you can be at that consistency where you guys have been always close despite, like, distance or whatever. And then it's not just, like, crammed into, like, the last, I don't know, like, 10 years of, like, their life when you take care of them. But I feel like it happens very often just because of, like, their relationship dynamic. And that it's okay, but at the same time, just, like, being very aware that, yeah, like, any one of us could be gone at any moment. We have to cherish, like, the current time that we have with them and be very intentional during that time as well, so that you don't regret it, because many people do. And, yeah, so basically what I'm trying to say is that I feel like it's very natural for that to happen, and it's kind of, like, expected, especially if, like, you're in that dynamic.
Yeah. I think, like, the reason I say this is because, like, I have friends who have had family members or parents or family members, I don't know why I said that, who are taken away suddenly from sickness or accident. And it's not things that you can control or expect, but there is that sense of, gosh, why didn't I make that last phone call when I had that extra 15 minutes? Why didn't I drive down to see him that weekend? Why didn't I... And you just get caught up in all of these, like, what ifs and all of this regret and guilt for not making time for them sooner. So I think, like, maybe it's... Oh no, I'm getting all sentimental, you know. But, like, recently I've been catching up or trying to make an effort to reconnect with, like, a lot more old friends. And I realized, like, there is value in these old friendships, because while you are not as close as you used to be, and the nature of the friendship has changed, there is, because you have that history, you do trust each other a lot more naturally. And I think it's nice to know that you're remembered by people, even if it was just for a season in life. And I think what partly also makes these relationships special is the intentionality. It's like, hey, I thought about you a couple of weeks ago. Like, I wondered how you're doing. But I guess my case is we should be doing that more for the people who are around us that we don't really think about super intentionally. Like, we think because we're around, being around a person all the time does not equate quality time. Yeah. So, I think that's my point. Being around a person all the time does not equate quality time, and we should be looking to spend more quality time rather than quantity. Because while quantity does matter to a certain extent, quantity does not always equate quality. Like what you were saying about you and your brother, like you really get on what Cayley was saying about you and your brother, like you guys from time to time you get on each other's nerves and
spend
you
too
really,
much time together.
Yeah, because you spend so much time together, you know what the triggers are and you trigger each other easily. It's like sibling dynamic.
Yeah.
But at the same time, just because you're around each other all the time does not mean that the time you spend together is a good time.
Yeah, because there's a lot of bad times.
Because there's a lot of bad times. So
Which is normal, it's not a bad thing.
Yeah, it just means that you have to make a more intentional effort to have the good time.
Yeah.
And I feel like, at least for me, like sometimes quantity can help with quality. Because like I'm someone that, like, it really helps to spend time with like people for me to like get to know them and like feel comfortable around them. Like if I don't, like it took me like 2 years to like warm up to like my church mates, and that's a very long time. Like I felt comfortable like when we were into our 3rd year in the church. So like in terms of like quantity, like that helped, right? Just like being there. But I think, I mean, like, no one really knows how exactly best to, like, navigate living with someone all the time. Especially when these people have, like, so different personalities from you, and you didn't, like...
And there is no best way.
And you didn't choose to, like, live with them.
Yeah. family is like that kind of thing.
Yeah. So, like, you didn't choose, like, your family members. And, like, while your friends, like, you choose your friends. Like, your friends may be people who are like you, people who you are comfortable around. And that's great, right? But I think we just fail to recognize how much learning there is, and intentionality in, like, family relationships. Because, like, you guys were once strangers. If you think about it.
Yeah.
Like, my baby is a stranger. What? My sibling is a stranger. Like,
I don't know this kid.
We
are all strangers.
We are all strangers, right? And having to see them, like, all the time and being in their space all the time and having to live with them and their different habits can be really tough. And it's really like a learn as you go kind of thing. And you really have to, like, just put in effort and keep trying. I guess the idea is to just keep trying.
Yeah.
In conclusion,
Mm.
to bring it back to the giving tree, I think the boy wasn't intentional about his relationship with the tree. And I don't know what he felt towards the end, but he realized that the quality of his relationships were more important than the things that he had. Because at the end of the day, even though he had all of those things, the tree is still what he went back to.
Yeah.
Because it was the tree, it's familiar, it's kind. So, was the relationship healthy, and should you try to be like the tree? No. Absolutely not. I think there's some aspects of the tree that are good, like her giving personality,
Very
her
generous.
overall love, her generosity is good. But just because those things are good doesn't mean you have to be those things all of the time. And I wonder if she had said no to the boy, would the boy have realized sooner that it wasn't things that he was chasing, but rather a good relationship? Yeah.
I think... Sorry, go ahead.
I'm not. I'm just looking.
Oh, okay. No, I think for me, like, the conclusion is that this story is a very tragic reality of
Modern day Romeo and Juliet?
missed timing, missed miscommunication.
Why does it do that though?
As I was saying.
Let's use my camera next time.
But your camera battery sounds...
No, it's the new one.
Oh, nice.
Oh.
Yeah, so, like, it's a whole story of, like, mistiming, miscommunication, and just two... I guess you could say people, because, like, the tree's personified, right? Like, two people just not... I guess that's reality, right? Reality can't be perfect. Like, we always feel like, oh, you know, like, yeah, it wasn't, like, the healthiest. It could have been better. But many times we fall short of, like, those dreams. Of, like, hoping that our relationships could be, like, perfect. And it's so complex. I think that's also a reason why, like, this story has so much interpretations. And it can mean something very different to, like, each person. And that I think one thing that I want to take away from the story is to just keep trying and just be as aware of yourself as possible and aware of, like, your dynamic with others, the way you treat relationships, and the way that you are, and the person that you're being in those relationships. And that's where growth comes from, right? I guess in this story, like, it wasn't, maybe the boy did grow, because, like, we couldn't really see his perspective, but I guess people grow at different paces, and that's fine. But yeah, reality isn't perfect. And I think this story is a good representation of reality sometimes.
Yeah.
We are both the boy and the tree.
Yeah. And maybe at different stages.
And maybe at different stages.
And we dressed up as trees,
Yeah, for
I
those
guess.
of us who can see us, we, like, Cayley did her makeup, like, tree makeup.
Show it.
Can you see from there?
Will you take off your glasses?
Now can you see?
Rebecca's
from there?
gonna zoom in.
Let's hope it's crispy.
Yeah.
And then we have the tree trunk and the leaves.
And the sky.
Yeah.
And the leaves. But do you have, like, any last thoughts about the book? And then we can...
Final words. Yeah. No pressure.
I have like a vague idea.
Sure.
Okay, keep talking and then...
Try to be aware at least, because I feel like the boy had no idea what he was doing. Because to him it was just a tree. I'm just taking the tree so I can get what I want. But yet he no like self-awareness or that he was hurting the tree. I mean, of course you cut down a tree. You think you killed the tree, but he just kept going, I guess. So and also the tree. I feel like she could have set boundaries.
Yeah.
She could have said no, or like I don't know, get like the bunnies to chase him away or something. I don't know. The birds attack. He's stealing my branches. You know.
Yeah.
And most of the time it's really hard to be aware because we are looking, like, if the story was through the lens of, like, tree, it would have been a certain way. If the story was through the lens of the boy, it would have been a certain way. But because it is, like, a third-person perspective, we're able to see, like, the dynamic. But when you're inside and you're talking to someone, or this, like, your relationship with someone, it's very hard to see from the third-person perspective. It's very hard to think outside of yourself and just, like, view it as objectively as you can.
Yeah, so communicate your needs too within your relationships.
Yeah. The tree could have done better by communicating that she was not happy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there it is. We've got three slightly differing perspectives on the giving tree, giving us all, at the end of the day, an existential crisis. Let us know if you agree, disagree,
What your thoughts are.
what your thoughts are. Because I'm sure there are more perspectives that can be explored, but we only have so much time, and we know that everybody has lots of things to do. So yeah, thank you for spending this time with us. We hope that it got you thinking, or if not, gave you some background noise. We know how podcasts work. We know.
It's honestly really nice just to listen in the background sometimes. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we hope you enjoyed this background noise and maybe took something away from it. Yeah.
See you next time.
We'll see you next time.